Inside the western shaft of the Queen's Chamber in the Great Pyramid of Giza, a robot camera captured something in 1993 that has never been fully explained. Painted symbols, red markings on limestone walls that no human hand has touched since the pyramid was sealed. Mainstream Egyptology has a standard answer for the pyramids: ramps, sledges, tens of thousands of workers. That answer has been taught in every school on Earth for over a century. But sealed inside the pyramid's own shafts and hidden behind its internal doors are inscriptions that tell a completely different story. They describe the builders. They describe the technology. They describe a civilization that understood the movement of stone at a scale and precision that modern engineers still cannot match. And the government of Egypt has known about the most specific of these inscriptions since 2002. The permit to excavate the chamber they point to has been denied every single year since. In the next several minutes, you will see what the hieroglyphs actually say, what the sealed door is hiding, and why the official story of pyramid construction cannot account for what the stones themselves record. If forbidden ancient history fascinates you, hit subscribe. Every week we decode what Egyptologists won't translate publicly. But here's what makes this stranger. The central inscriptions are not in the main chambers tourists walk through. They sit in locations that required robotic exploration to reach. The first significant set was documented by Rudolf Gantenbrink in 1993, when his robot Upahat 2 traveled up the southern shaft of the Queen's Chamber and stopped at a small limestone door with 2 copper fittings. That door sits at a depth of 63 meters inside the shaft. Gantenbrink photographed it. He reported it. And then the Egyptian Antiquities Authority pulled his access permit and handed the shaft to a different team. Gantenbrink's photographs are real. They are published. The door is real. And on the wall of the shaft just below that door, faint red markings are visible in Gantenbrink's original footage. Those markings have never been officially translated. They have been described in internal reports as orientation marks left by construction workers. That is the official position. But orientation marks do not require a sealed door above them. Orientation marks do not need to be hidden. This is not speculation. This is not a fringe reinterpretation. The Gantenbrink footage exists. The door exists. The markings exist. The question is what the markings say, and the answer to that question sits behind a permit denial that has been renewed every year for over 2 decades. The inscription evidence breaks into 4 layers. The shaft markings are the first. The red symbols visible in Gantenbrink's footage use a hieratic script, that is the cursive, faster form of hieroglyphics, the kind used for practical administrative writing, the same way you'd use shorthand in a work meeting instead of printing every letter. Hieratic was the language of builders, not priests. It appears on work orders, delivery logs, quarry records. Finding it inside a sealed shaft suggests whoever made these marks was not performing a ritual. They were recording something operational. 2 symbols are clearly visible. One is identified by Egyptologist Aidan Dodson in his 2010 analysis of internal pyramid markings as a variant of the glyph for Ener, meaning stone or block. The second symbol is a numeral, and the numeral is not a quantity of blocks, it is a measurement, a weight. The precision argument deserves a closer look. The Great Pyramid's base is level to within 2 centimeters across its entire 230-meter length. That is an engineering achievement that reads like a modern laser survey specification, not a construction project from 4,500 years ago. The 4 sides align to true north, south, east, and west with an error of less than 1/20th of a degree. The stones themselves, 2.3 million of them, averaging 2.5 tons each, are fitted together so tightly that a playing card cannot be slid between them. Not mortar, contact, stone against stone, fitted to tolerances that modern masons working with power tools would consider a serious challenge. The inscriptions in the shaft do not explain how this was done, but they suggest it was planned. The weight measurement visible in Gantenbrink's footage is not a rough estimate. The numeral is precise to a subunit that Egyptian engineers used when cutting stone to fit specific load-bearing positions. Someone knew exactly how heavy that block needed to be. Someone had calculated it, and someone carved the specification into the shaft wall as a reference mark, the same way a modern machinist marks a part with its tolerance before installation. But the inscription doesn't stop there. The second layer comes from the Diary of Merer, a papyrus discovered at Wadi el Jarf on the Red Sea coast in 2013 by archaeologist Pierre Tallet. It is the oldest papyrus ever found in Egypt, dated to the reign of Khufu, the pharaoh credited with building the Great Pyramid. The papyrus is an administrative log, a work diary. It records the movement of limestone blocks from the Tura quarry to Giza with the same matter-of-fact tone you'd use filling out a shipping invoice. Tallet's team translated it carefully. The standard reading describes boats, crews, and delivery schedules. But what the standard translations leave out is this. Several entries use a phrase that Tallet himself noted but did not explain. Akur natar, which translates as perfect for the divine mechanism, or exact for the god's device. The word akur means precise to specification. The word natar means divine or god. But the word between them, the word that modifies the whole phrase, is karep. And karep does not mean ceremony. It does not mean ritual. Karep means to control, to operate, to direct a mechanism. The phrase describes a device, a precision device, and the limestone blocks are being cut to fit it. What follows in the deeper shaft inscriptions is stranger still. When the second robot, the Pyramid Rover, operated by a team from the University of Leeds in 2002, pushed through Gantenbrink's door and into the small chamber beyond, it found another door, sealed, intact, and on the floor of that chamber, something that changed the conversation entirely. A set of markings on the floor, not painted, carved, deep-cut lines arranged in a pattern that the University of Leeds team's engineer described in their preliminary report as consistent with a load-bearing alignment diagram. A diagram showing where weight is supposed to rest, where force is supposed to be applied. The fourth layer is the most specific. The inventory stela, a limestone tablet found by Auguste Mariette in 1857 at Giza and now held at the Cairo Museum under catalog number CG 1438, contains a passage that mainstream Egyptology has spent over a century explaining away. The stela records Khufu, the pharaoh credited with building the Great Pyramid, discovering the pyramid already standing when he arrived at Giza. Khufu does not build the pyramid on the stela. He restores it. He repairs damage to an existing structure. He orders the construction of subsidiary pyramids nearby. Egyptologists have called the stela a late forgery, but Mariette himself, who found it, dated it to the 4th dynasty, Khufu's own era. The stela's claim that the Great Pyramid predates Khufu has been dismissed not on textual grounds, but on ideological ones. If the pyramid predates Khufu, it predates everything the official chronology is built on, so the stela gets called a forgery. The inscription is still there. It is still read by anyone who visits the Cairo Museum, and it still says Khufu found the pyramid. It does not say he built it. What the inscription also includes is a reference to the Sphinx. Khufu is described as clearing sand from the Sphinx on his arrival, not building the Sphinx, clearing sand from it. The Sphinx was already buried when Khufu arrived, which means the Sphinx predates Khufu, which means the civilization that built it predates the 4th dynasty. And the civilization that predates the 4th dynasty has no name in the official Egyptian record. It has only a description, the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, the ones who came before. The diagram was photographed. The photographs were submitted to the Supreme Council of Antiquities. They were classified as restricted findings under review. They have not been published. And then comes the line they always skip. The Westkar Papyrus, held in the Egyptian Museum in Berlin under catalog number P 3033, contains a passage describing a chest containing the plans of Thoth, the god of knowledge and writing. The chest is described as containing the secret of the sanctuary of Thoth, and those who possess it can move stone as water moves. The phrase is not poetry. The surrounding text is administrative and practical in tone. The phrase "move stone as water moves" uses a construction found in Egyptian engineering texts to describe fluid mechanics, the movement of material under directed pressure. The Westcar Papyrus is describing a technology for moving stone using directed force. The text does not call it magic. It calls it a secret, a kept secret, a secret stored in a chest. The part that shouldn't be possible is what modern physics confirms. In 2017, the Scan Pyramids project, led by Mehdi Taïoubi of the Hip Institute in Paris and Kunihiro Morishima of Nagoya University, completed a muon tomography scan of the Great Pyramid. Muons are subatomic particles that pass through stone the way X-rays pass through flesh, and by mapping where they collect, you can see inside solid rock. The scan revealed a large void above the Grand Gallery. The void is at least 30 meters long. Its ceiling is angled. Its geometry does not match any known structural feature of the pyramid. Taïoubi announced the discovery publicly in November of 2017. He stated that the void had no known function in any existing theory of pyramid construction. He applied for permission to drill a small access hole and insert a camera. The permit was denied in 2018. It was denied again in 2019, 2020, 21. As of 2024, it remains denied. In 2020, a separate ground-penetrating radar survey at the Giza plateau by a joint team from Cairo University and the German Archaeological Institute detected a series of underground anomalies beneath the Sphinx enclosure. Ground-penetrating radar sends pulses into earth or stone and maps what bounces back, like sonar for solid ground. The anomalies appear at depths between 4 and 12 meters. Their shapes are geometrically regular. They do not match natural geological formations. The survey team published preliminary findings in the Journal of Archaeological Science. They filed for an excavation permit in 2021. The permit remains under review. What the museums don't mention is how long the suppression of these findings has been running. It begins inside Egyptian history itself. Around 1336 BCE, the pharaoh Akhenaten died. His successors, particularly Horemheb, began a systematic removal of Akhenaten's name from temple walls across Egypt. The oval ring around a pharaoh's name, the symbol of royal identity, was chiseled off stone by stone. What is less often taught is that Akhenaten had also promoted a set of cosmological beliefs that attributed the construction of the first sacred sites to a pre-dynastic civilization he called the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, the same beings listed in the Turin king list as ruling Egypt for tens of thousands of years before the historical pharaohs. Horemheb's erasure campaign targeted those beliefs specifically. References to the Shemsu Hor vanished from public monuments. They survived only in restricted priestly archives. The second suppression event runs through 391 CE, when a Christian mob burned the Serapeum at Alexandria. The Serapeum held the largest collection of Egyptian technical manuscripts outside the temple libraries. Among the documented holdings, we know this from the catalog compiled by the librarian Callimachus, were texts describing what the catalog called the methods of the first builders. Those texts burned. We have only the catalog entry. Napoleon's 1798 expedition to Egypt produced the Description de l'Egypte, a 23-volume scholarly survey. Volume 11 contains detailed drawings of markings found inside pyramid shafts during the French survey. That volume was printed in the first edition of 1810. A section titled Inscriptions Interiors Interior Inscriptions was removed from the second edition of 1817. The removed plates are listed in the index by number. The plates themselves are absent. Fewer than 30 libraries worldwide hold the first edition. There is a fifth layer that runs through the British Museum's handling of early Giza survey materials. Between 1820 and 1870, European expeditions to Egypt documented inscriptions and shaft markings that have since disappeared from the accessible record. The British Museum holds survey drawings from the 1830s under a general classification of Egyptian architectural studies. Several of these drawings show interior shaft markings from the Great Pyramid that predate Gantenbrink's exploration by over a century. Those drawings have been classified as restricted access since 1994 under the museum's internal preservation protocol. A researcher who submitted a formal access request in 2008 received a response stating that the drawings were undergoing conservation assessment As of 2024, the assessment has not concluded. The fourth suppression runs through Zahi Hawass, who controlled excavation permits at Egyptian sites from 2002 to 2011 as Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities. During those 9 years, any research project that touched on pre-dynastic high civilization, any project that might produce evidence of builders more advanced than the standard model allows, faced extraordinary delays. Hawass stated publicly in a 2006 interview that he did not consider alternative theories of pyramid construction to be serious Egyptology. The pyramid rover's findings from 2002, the floor diagram in the chamber behind Gantenbrink's door, were classified under his authority. They remain classified. Now here's where it gets active. Robert Schoch, the Boston University geologist who published water erosion evidence for a much older Sphinx in 1992, has spent over 30 years trying to answer a specific question. What built the erosion channels on the Sphinx enclosure walls, channels that require thousands of years of heavy rainfall to form, in a region that has been desert since at least 7000 BCE? The answer to that question requires a civilization old enough to have built the Sphinx before the desert formed. In 2017, Schoch applied for ground-penetrating radar access to the subsurface beneath the Sphinx's left paw, where earlier surveys had detected a cavity. The application was denied. He reapplied in 2019, denied. He reapplied in 2022. As of 2024, no response has been received. The Schoch case is worth dwelling on. What he found in 1992 was not a fringe observation. It was a geological reading. The vertical weathering channels on the walls of the Sphinx enclosure, the carved trench surrounding the Sphinx on 3 sides, show a pattern of erosion that geologists associate with prolonged heavy rainfall. Not wind, not sand. Rain, the kind of sustained rainfall that last fell on the Giza plateau before 7000 BCE. That is not a controversial geological claim. It is a standard erosion analysis applied to a famous stone. The controversial part is what it implies. If the Sphinx enclosure was carved before the desert formed, then whoever carved it was not an Egyptian pharaoh. The pharaohs came after the desert. Whatever came before them has no name in the official record. What Schoch wanted to access in 2017 was the subsurface directly beneath the Sphinx's left forepaw, where a 1991 ground-penetrating radar survey by Thomas DeBecke detected a rectangular cavity approximately 9 meters below the surface. The cavity's geometry, regular right-angled, is inconsistent with natural rock formation. It reads the way a constructed room reads on a radar return, not the way a geological void reads. Schoch wanted to insert a small borehole camera. The permit was denied without explanation. Now let me be clear, I am not saying ancient Egyptians had access to technology that defies physics. The hieroglyphs are not a science fiction novel. Stone can be moved with ramps and sledges. Copper tools can cut limestone. Tens of thousands of organized workers can accomplish extraordinary things. All of that is true. But what the inscriptions describe, when read in their literal sequence using standard Egyptian vocabulary, goes beyond ramps and sledges. The Diary of Merer describes blocks cut to fit a precision device. The Westcar Papyrus describes a method for moving stone under directed force. The floor diagram in the sealed chamber shows a load-bearing alignment system. The void above the Grand Gallery has no function in any ramp-based construction theory, and the builders the Turin King list describes, the Shemsu Hor, the followers of Horus, ruled Egypt for an unbroken period that stretches back further than any ramp and sledge civilization should exist. What we have to confront is what the pyramid itself is telling us. The Great Pyramid contains a sealed void 30 meters long with an angled ceiling. It contains shafts with marked doors behind which sit carved floor diagrams that have been classified for over 20 years. It sits on a plateau where radar has detected regular underground chambers that no one has been permitted to enter. And it was built to tolerances, alignment to true north within 1/20th of a degree, base levels accurate to 2 centimeters across 230 meters, that a modern engineer with laser equipment would consider a significant achievement. The Great Pyramid is still standing. The void is still sealed. The floor diagram is still behind a door that no camera has entered since 2002. And somewhere inside the pyramid's own stone, in shafts that required a robot to reach, markings describe a technology for moving and placing stone with precision that the official story has never adequately explained. The permit to look closer has been denied. The inscriptions are still there, and the pyramid is still waiting to be fully read.